legacy. It's the infinite game. I'm not playing this game now, so that's why I'm getting so much better about low and slow months or shit feedback and stuff. It's actually just, what is that infinite mission? And it's, I don't believe that women should be at the bottom of the priority pile, not in this day and age.
So we are in Shrewsbury.
We are.
It's great to see you in person. Last time I came on your podcast, today we're on my podcast. And of course, we are joined by Sasha today. And today we're really going to be discussing, I think, really your journey, how you got into...
You didn't introduce Rodney.
Oh, well, okay. Rodney is, for people listening, not watching, Rodney has taken a liking to me. A lot of people have always said that I am the dog whisperer, and today is proving to be true. So welcome to the podcast, Rodney. Wow. Okay. That's a great reception. So we've started well.
Okay, we're off to a good start.
So Sasha, I think it's really interesting to talk to people about their story, where their journey began, how their mindset, like the inception of that growth mindset, where did it all begin for you?
I think from a really young age, because I grew up with a single mother from the age of 4. And I think from that moment of when my dad left, I knew I was different. And I felt very different actually from before that, because my siblings were all much older than me. So, and they had a different dad. So, you know, from like a young age, you're looking around and you're like, I don't feel the same as other people. Like I always recognized that my mum was much older than other mums, and that actually some people's grandparents were the same age as my mum, not like when I was a baby, but like now really so. So I think that level of difference always made me think about how life could be done in a different way compared to everyone else. How I thought it almost had to happen. In regards for me to live a life that I wanted to, I always remember thinking, right, I've got to make this happen. I've got to do things in my way. And I've always been a strong character. I've always been the one who would be up on the stage, always the one who would be singing, dancing, and love the limelight. So yeah, I think the mindset, what? Yeah. And I think the mindset started to develop from a really young age.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to me when I talk to people like business owners and people that tend to walk a different path, because it is different, and it's very, I think it's a difficult existence, because you're constantly going against the grain. And I've felt it myself sometimes when you're having conversations and there's things that don't necessarily align with what you think, and you just kind of think that you're a bit weird, you're a bit different, and you don't really recognize why. And I've only really in the last probably 5 years of running my business actually come to recognize that that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm not a weirdo. Because like the amount of times I'm like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind having a drink, but it's just not something that interests me. Like I don't particularly like the thought of going out every single weekend and going for a drink. Like that to me seems like a pointless activity, that there's no direction of like, and I'm so probably to a fault, like I just love a direction. I love to go chase something. I love a challenge. So you mentioned that you were really into... I'm being attacked.
He's just giving you kisses.
Being absolutely mauled.
Rodney, leave him alone.
So one of the things that you mentioned was you noticed that you were very different in terms of mindset. Can you give me an example of how that manifested?
How it manifested, I'm unsure, but like I know, like, so I think a lot of people grow up with the mindset of I'm not good enough, and mine to be very kind of pinpointed on it was I felt broken. Like for my dad to walk out when I was 4 years old, I thought I was the problem. I thought I was the reason why he left, and I wasn't good enough, and I was the one who was broken in order for him to leave. And that is obviously like, because I remember having a conversation when I was a personal trainer in the gym, and she was like, we got onto the fact of like how like my childhood played out. She's like, I don't really know anything about you. So I was like, oh, I grew up with a single mum and stuff like that. And she was like, how do you think it's impacted you not having your dad around? And at the time, I hadn't done any self-development work, right? And I was like, oh, hasn't impacted me at all. He was just a dickhead, didn't bother me. And, oh my goodness, how wrong was I? But I don't think until you give yourself the space and the opportunity to delve into self-development, self-awareness, and the enhancement of your mindset, you can't see it until you start to look into it.
Yeah.
So from probably 3 years ago now, I started to look into the mindset side of things. And now I can see, looking back, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? How the early years of my life really have impacted me, like to the point of I have been a high achiever. So if you compare me to my siblings, oh my God, like, and I'm not a geek, as you know, like I'm just I know what I know about what I know, and I will expand my awareness and my knowledge, but I'm not like you, like analytical and really intelligent and stuff. Not yet.
Thank you.
Well, you are. But if you compare me to my siblings, I got like ridiculous results compared to them. And I think that comes from that young age of going, right, I know I'm going to be recognized if I put some work in. I know I'm going to be recognized if I'm the one who kind of shouts the loudest as well. And that's what, as a kid, I always did, I was the spoiled one of the family. I always made sure that mum was like, she'd give in to me because I was child number 4. And I knew what to do. Like, she just couldn't give a shit anymore. She's like, Sash, just have it. So I think in regards to how it's all manifested, now it's in a very good way. So I've got the work ethic. I'm very driven. I have done so much work into my mind and my self-awareness. And I think now, like 3 years deep into it, it's really starting to benefit me in many ways.
That's so interesting because I think we share a commonality there, where like my mum and dad got divorced when I was very young as well. And it was just a different era back then, wasn't it? I was, I think, 10. And like for me, I was just like, nobody else was getting divorced. It was me, and actually, weirdly enough, it was my best mate at the time. Like, his mum and dad were also getting divorced. And I seem to remember just like, I don't know how I felt about it at the time. Like, I don't really remember. I think I was upset, obviously, but I think it was more, I was upset because there was no other point of reference. And I don't think that I remember people asking me, and I was like, yeah, it's great. I get 2 Christmases. I get 2 birthdays. Like, I remember, because I've always been like toxically positive. And I didn't know that I was toxically positive until like I started my therapy journey. And it was just a really interesting thing to unpack when I started to unravel and learn why I was so driven, why I was so motivated, why I wanted to achieve, why, like, all of these things. And it was just a very interesting experience to go, oh, okay, well, that actually makes so much sense. Like, okay, so I was essentially, for people that are listening or watching, I was searching for external validation by achieving. Because I wanted people to be like, oh, I'm proud of you. Like, oh, I'm happy you're doing well. And now, once I've done the work, the same as yourself, it's now blended and merged into, I just want to do it anyway. Like, I couldn't care less now about the external validation. I do it because I enjoy it and I love it. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that that's kind of followed suit with you as well. And
I think that's really common for a lot of entrepreneurs, though. I think you hear of, if you look at, I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Gary Vee on, and he left school with like no grades. His parents were still like a nuclear family and stuff, but there was a lot of hardship, and his mother went through a lot of hardship, and his dad did actually as well. So I think if you like, a lot of people look at entrepreneurs and people who are, inverted commas, successful, and they're like, oh, it's easy for them, they've got it easy, however they choose to judge. But actually, it usually comes from adversity that we create the strength, or maybe the kind of programming that is like, right, I'm going to fucking prove people wrong here.
oh yeah.
I think we can all resonate with that.
Yeah.
But actually, it's not that we have anything different. It's not that we are privileged in any way. You know, I know we are compared to some, definitely, but it's actually more because we've been through adversity. It's because we've built up the kind of anti-fragility muscle where we just keep going regardless. And that's the way that I see it. Like, I really don't I get swayed, but not for a long time, with like bad news or low months in business, or, you know, bad feedback and stuff. But I'm generally just a fixer. So I'll come in and I'll go, yes, okay, recognize that this is something that's not okay, and come out the other side and fix it. Whereas a lot of society these days drop into victim mindset. And I think it could be potentially because they haven't been through enough. They haven't been through much. You know, if you look at both of our childhoods, there's been stuff that's gone on, albeit probably wouldn't want to swap places with a lot of people in society who've been through much worse. But actually, you know, some people just sail through. And they wonder why then they don't, like, they have a bad month in business and it completely blows their head.
I think it's interesting because we live in such a soft generation. And obviously, you know, I don't want to get carried away with it, but I just think that for me, competition and sports have been so imperative for me, because it teaches you, you know, if someone beats you, there was a reason, like you didn't do something. So whether it's a team sport or an individual sport, I did both. But individual sports, there was no one else to blame.
That's true.
And that taught me the most. Like when I was doing my gymnastics, when I was doing trampolining, it was like, yeah, fine. It's a team sport in the sense that you've got your coaches, you've got the people supporting you, you've got the people teaching you the routines, you've got the club. And yeah, so there's a certain element of team. But when you're on the trampoline or you're on the floor, you're on the pommel, you're on the rings, whatever, it's you and that's it. It's you and the judges. So if you lose, you've done something wrong. You've not delivered, you've not performed, you've forgotten your routine, whatever it is. You've not done the reps, the mental reps. And I remember, like, I hate losing now. I say now, but I've always, it's the one thing, like, I've been a terrible loser, I've been a sore loser, and I hate it. And it really gets me.
Even now?
Even now.
That's interesting. So, you know how you mentioned external validation before? Is there an element of external validation there?
No, for me, the reason why I hate losing is because I want to make sure that I've done everything in my power. And it annoys me that I've messed up. Not because I want to win for people to be like, yeah, Dan, you won. Because it's a very toxic thing, because for me, it's got nothing to do with the other people. It's all about me wanting to beat them.
Okay, so an element of high expectations as well. Do you, like, so is this even the case if we were to go bowling?
100%.
Really? For God's sake.
Absolutely anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a Monopoly with a family, if it's a foot race. My little cousin messaged me the other day, I don't run. And she wanted to have a race. You know where this is going.
Did she win?
No, like, we haven't had the race yet. But I'm telling you now, I will win that race.
Is she?
12, I think.
I hope she kicks your ass. So say, for example, she does win. What happens then?
So again, this is where, like, the obsessive, like, nature kicks in with that. I will start running. Like, I will train. I'm not joking. I will make sure that I'm not beaten.
Next time.
Yeah, next time. And I won't say anything. I'll just be like, yeah, should we have a rematch? And then
like Usain Bolt is in the house.
Yeah.
So that's hilarious.
It happened with everything. So when I was gaming, when I was younger, in my teen years, like, all my friends would go off and I'd be like, yeah, I'm going off too. And then I'd spend like an hour, like, practicing, like, trying to get better.
So that's like competitiveness, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
This is where I feel very different to many other entrepreneurs. I'm very like, I just don't give a flying monkeys about it. You know, I'm very much own lane. I'm very hard on myself. Like, my expectations are through the roof. But like with someone else, so I'd be inspired by other people winning. So I've had great chats with fellow coaches who are having the ability to help like 150, 200 women plus. And I'm like, but I suppose that's not a finite game, is it? I suppose.
So, yeah, so that wouldn't impact me either, because I quite like that, because it shows me what's possible. But if it's competitive, if it's it only really happens with sports. If it's business, like I like that. I like being around people of success.
Yes.
It's only sports, competitive, like little games.
Like Monopoly.
Yeah. I mean, you can't even class that as a game. That is kill or be killed.
This is a life or death thing. Yeah, no, I don't have that. I'm happy. Like if I go bowling and I don't come last, I'm like winner.
Yeah, no, I hate it. If I don't come first, I'm like, damn it.
I would absolutely howl if we went and I beat you, because it would just be an absolute fluke.
I'd be on Wii Sports practicing before.
You go into the every single week.
They'd be like, "You back again?" I'd be like, "Shh."
Yeah, it's a secret.
Yeah,
I'll tell you as well.
yeah. Honestly, it's really bad, and I don't know. I think it's just because, to begin with, at the start of my existence, my life, it was external validation. It was, I want to be told that I've done well and those sorts of things. But I think it's just followed suit now. Like I don't care about that. I just still like winning.
And I suppose because from a young age it was sports for you, so you know what you can expect of yourself. So it is kind of expectations that you do have evidence for, and you hold yourself to those expectations. Whereas for me, I never did sports in school. I hated it. When it was like teenage years, I was like on my period every week. I was like, sorry, I can't do anything this week. I'm on period. They were like, again? Yep.
You are an enigma.
Literally. I'm like, so it literally was by chance that I fell into the fitness world. Like I was I was on the path to be a mental health nurse. So to fall into fitness and then land up where I am today was a complete fluke. So I think that's probably why we're very different in that, because sport, nah.
Are you competitive with yourself though?
Yes.
In terms of your standards. So
yeah,
like with business, like for me, I think it's just my standards. And I think that's where it stems from now, because if I have a really successful month with business, or if I achieve something with business, like I don't really celebrate it. I just move to the next thing. I'm like, okay, fine. Now I need to do better. Now I need to do better, because it's like I've done that. And it's just, I think it's just the challenge.
Yeah, I agree. Mine is like, so we had we kind of got the most amount of people into the program we've ever done in August, which is ironic because everyone's like, oh, it's quiet in August. Well, we had the best month. And instead of me finishing that month thinking, right, I'm going to beat it, which I'm not, like, I don't find that kind of inspiring for me. Mine was, right, if we're going to do this again, how do we do it more efficient? So I'm competitive in that way. It's like you see so many people, is it called like the hedonic treadmill, who are just chasing. They always want more and bigger numbers and stuff. Yeah, I'm with you, but also I'm very much about not doing things at the cost of self anymore. Like I have burnt out more times than I don't even know what. Like I am the queen of burnout. That's why I help people to not burn out. Ironically. So I'm always like stepping back and going, right, okay, well done. We're doing great, but now how can we do it more effectively? How can we do this more efficiently? How can we do this with, less fatigue, with more drive? Like, how can we get these women in with more kind of like systems that are smoother? So I'm always looking to be better, but maybe not in the way that a lot of people do.
Take me back to young Sasha.
Yep.
So young Sasha you mentioned you were kind of on the road to being a mental health nurse.
Yep.
How did that flip? Because that's obviously very different, but actually with online coaching and training, very, very similar, actually, I think.
Yeah. So for me, right the way through school, I wanted to be a doctor. I actually wanted to be a psychiatrist. And I can't remember what teacher it is, but if I could go back to her and speak to her, I really would, because I told her what I wanted to be. And I was probably about 12 or 13. This is before the party scene started for me. Because I started partying very young, like 13, 14. And she said to me, Sasha, you won't be able to do that. And I was like, why? And she was like, because you need to be like ridiculously intelligent to go into being a psychiatrist. You need to be a doctor first.
What an incredible teacher.
I know. And she just went, you couldn't do that. She was like, you'd have to choose all of the sciences and whatever else it would be. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, I suppose second guess is mental health nurse, isn't it? So I just thought, and my sister was
what age was this? Sorry,
probably 12, 13. So what age do you choose your options?
GCSE options.
Yeah.
Year 9, so I think that's third year. So what's that?
Yeah,
13, 14.
The year before choosing. So my sister was a neonatal nurse. And her friend Danny was a mental health nurse. So I just spoke to them a bit, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's aim to do that. So I chose my options, did really well in school, and then on the side I was like, I want to make some money, obviously, because I wanted to go partying more. I wanted to so I kind of looked for jobs in my local really small town and was like, what is the best paid job? Straight in there with money. And it was a lifeguard. So bearing in mind, this was so I'm 31 now, so this is when I was 16. The pay that I was getting was about £8 an hour, which is bloody good. You think, like, what is this, like over 10 years ago? It's just eating your hand. And so I became a lifeguard. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Would just do all of the working hours I possibly could. Would work on a food catering van in the summers as well. So I was always like work. And I always saw that from my mum. You know, my mum was a single mum, but even though she would say yes to things, I could see the pain on her face when she was like, oh God, Sash wants to go skiing. Like, this is going to cost a lot of money. And I think that's where my money mindset comes from a lot of the time. So anyway, I was a lifeguard, and I saw all these women coming every Friday morning to go and do their aerobics class. And I was like, oh, I'll sort this amount. And one day I thought, you know what? I'm going to go in. And I did legs, bums and tums, right? And I was all over the shop, like aerobics. I think there was a step involved, and I kept tripping over it, and it was just an absolute shambles.
Completely uncoordinated.
God. Then the next morning, I remember lying in bed at my mum's house, and I was like, open my eyes, and I was like, I can't move. It was literally like my body was in agony, and I was like, I fucking love this. This is that sadistic mindset. Like, yeah. So then the very next day, I went down to my boss, and I was like, can I become a fitness instructor? She was like, yeah, we can do that, because they put you through your quals, don't they? Yeah. And stuff. So that's where it all began. And then they were like, once I'd qualified, they were like, oh, we don't have any jobs for you here, so you're going to need to go to Shrewsbury, which was like this big town that I'd like, you had to go on the bus to get there. So I got my friend to drive me here. Bless you, Rodney. My friend to drive me here, and I handed my CVs out, and then Bannatynes was the final one I did, and then the rest is history. I got straight in, climbed the ranks there, then left as a PT in 2015 and went self-employed. So yeah, that's my journey. Very different. And I obviously had got in at university, but decided to go against the grain, which I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I didn't just do it because it would make my mum proud. Like, I remember everyone was like, well, you're just not going to go to uni. I was like, and I kind of blagged it a bit. I was like, no, I'm just going to have a gap year. Gonna have a gap year. Yeah. And I was like, oh my hell, I'm definitely not going. So that's how fitness ended up being a big part of my life. And it's bizarre, because if I'd have carried on the trajectory that I was on, like, it was like I was taking drugs every weekend, getting absolutely smashed, like 3-day benders every single week. Like, looking back, I don't know how we did it. It was great fun, but oh my goodness, like,
we're not condoning.
No, but absolutely not. It is. But I think it's like a lot of character building. Not that I'm condoning it, but I wouldn't change any of my life. Even some of the things that I regret the most in life, I would not change them.
It's interesting, because I think that the whole limited belief thing, and I really think that teachers and people that are around children have a massive onus. You know, I don't know, I'm very ignorant to the teaching world. I've had a few clients. I know people that are teachers. But you really can make or break someone by the words that you say to them. Yeah. I was very lucky. And I remember in my sixth form and in secondary school, like, I played up a lot in school. Like, I really did. Like, I was the class clown. I'd get in fights, little man syndrome. Like, so it was, you know, I was a dickhead in school. And obviously got a reputation, and then the teachers were just like, Daniel, like, literally, one of the teachers said to me, what did he say? He said, basically, that I wasn't going to amount to anything.
What a catalyst.
And for me, I've always been one of those people that I'm like, well, watch me now. Like, now that you've said that, even if I didn't want to do it, because I think that competitive edge again, even if I didn't want to do it, once you've said that I can't, or I shouldn't, I'm going to. Yeah.
Because for the wrong person who could have heard that, that would become a belief. A belief that, okay, I'm not going to drive, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to amount to anything, so I'm just going to not do anything.
Because it's that person of authority as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like you assume at that age, because you're being directed through the world, these are the gatekeepers. These are the people that are saying, this is what you have to do, because, if you follow XYZ, you end up with a good career. And, that's all we're indoctrinated to believe, that you go to school, go to college, go to university, you get a good job.
It's a blueprint.
And that's it. If you deviate from that, like I remember there was all sorts of things, like even as a kid, I just remember thinking, I was like, that's definitely not true. Because I remember like hearing it and being like, well, why? Like, why do we need a language like to go to university? And I was just like, I don't think that that's true. Like, because what happens if I'm not doing a language at university? That's like completely irrelevant. And I took a language, French.
Same.
I mean, I didn't take it, to be honest with you. Like I did, but it was one of those lessons that I just basically turned up and messed around in.
I got an A.
We are very different people. I think I got a D or a C.
This is, so back to the point about schools and the authority and teachers. I think this is a reason why, like, there are many reasons why I don't want children, right? And I think this is one of them. Like, if I had a child, would I want to put it through the school system? Absolutely not. Because even like I've got two nephews now, 9 and 12, and they are obviously going through their own kind of schooling journey. I'll see you later, Rod. And one of them, they both play up in different ways. But Joby is he's very intelligent, but they're not meeting him where he's at, because he's not fitting into this blueprint. They're like, they want him to be, like, they're saying he's naughty. He's not naughty. He just finds like learning French, for example, boring. Yeah. It's not what he wants to do. And like, then they get labeled as lazy, but then they like, it's the self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? If you get called lazy enough, you're going to become lazy, because it's, well, I'm lazy, why would I? It's that identity. Yeah. And it's just like, and I really do believe that, imagine if we could educate teachers in a different way. Imagine if we could empower them to not just have these boxes to tick all the time, which is, again, a societal thing, which absolutely boils my blood. But imagine if we could teach them to meet the children where they're at. Obviously, it would be very different, and you have to have some rules, and you do have to have some guidelines, but it's the same with coaching, right? Imagine if, so I've got 55 women in my program at the minute. Imagine if I just went and was like, oh, here, Linda, here's your cookie cutter plan. Yeah. This is going to be the same for all of you. You must stick to the same amount of calories that Shirley was on last week. And you're going to, imagine if we didn't meet them where they're at. Yeah. And this is why I think like child development, and I love learning about it, which is really weird because I'm like, children, ooh, but actually like, I love learning about it, because I'm like, how could life be different if we did things in a different way?
The psychology is fascinating when you come to child development, because your personality, your learning style, absolutely everything about you is pretty much fused by the time you're
5.
Yeah. And that just says so much. But then also we've got these, like, as you say, these self-fulfilling prophecies of, sets. Well, just because you can't recall information in the same way as someone else, you're in bottom set.
Yeah.
Or you're in top set because your memory recollection is better. Or, sports, like people, I've just got really good coordination. So pretty much any sport that I do, and also I'm very competitive. So I will go above and beyond to learn and make sure that I've got the right things in place to be good at it. But I was looking back, I was naughty. I was bored in school. They weren't pushing me. They weren't challenging me. And like, I didn't really realize that. Like, I was one of those kids in school that in sciences, like, I didn't revise. I was messing around in the class and I'd still get A stars or A's.
Wow. And
then as I was like getting bored, we were repeating the same information, and I was like, well, I kind of like, I'm bored now. If I'm not learning, if I'm not challenged, and again, going back to challenge, I've checked out.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same as like people. So we have ladies inside the coaching club who are in careers that, it's not challenging them, and it's not expanding their awareness. It's not helping them to become a better human. And they're just so bored. And I'm like, you will get the confidence. And even, you know, sometimes it's financial, there's like a commitment in regards to pension and stuff, so they have to stay. I would just find it soul destroying. I think I would, like, I'm the type of person, what word would some people would say a little bit rash maybe, but if something isn't serving me, regardless of the long-term buy-in, to a degree, like say for a job, for example, I just wouldn't stay. If there is no progression, like so at Bannatynes, I could have, like I did build up to the highest level I could go to. Then I was like, bored now. Being a manager's shit. Don't enjoy this. It's taken me away from the one thing that I actually love doing, which is personal training and fitness instructing at the time. So I wanted to get out. So that's why I started my own business. And that has been a game changer for me, because it's on my terms. I will take the business in the direction that I want to take it in. And being a bit of a control freak, that is great.
And that's the thing. I think one thing that I talk to people a lot about, and they ask me about, whether it's clients or just people, is how do you develop that? What can you do to instill that kind of faith in yourself to be able to take those steps? Because so many people hate their jobs. And like I'll say to them all the time, I'm like, quit, leave, find a new job. And then it's not that simple.
It
is that simple. And this is what I say to them all the time. I'm like, it is that simple. It's just not easy.
Yes. And you have to, it's the same, like I think the more people could be educated on business, the better. Because if we could run relationships like a business, family households like a business, everything, if we could run it in the kind of the way that you do kind of navigate through business, life would be better. So if you're looking at leaving, if you're hating your job, right? You think about how many hours you spend in your job every week. You then look at times up by whatever to get to how many days per year you're spending doing something you hate, knowing that you actually have no idea how long you're going to be on this planet for. Then you have leverage. Then you have a reason to quit, other than the kind of, because that's what we're weighing up. It's like, right, okay, my pension's there, you know, there could be some shares in the business that you have or what have you. You're then going, yeah, but what's going to mean more to me when I'm at my next milestone birthday, when I'm beyond the kind of like halfway mark of life, if you like. So for me, because I've had death a lot in my life, that is something that is really imprinted in my mind, is regardless of the money I'm going to have, regardless of the holidays, regardless of whatever, if I'm unhappy in that situation and I'm living my precious moments of every single day in that situation, and I can't give a perspective flip on it, I'm out. So, but some people, it's all about, you know, financial planning. Okay, so you know that this job that you're currently in pays you 40 grand a year. You know that you're going to be, you need that amount of money to, I don't know, live your life in the way that you want to. What passion project or side hustle could you pick up, build that alongside, slowly start to drop the hours if you can, and then leave? You know, people, I think we talked about this last time, growth versus fixed mindset. A lot of people, they accept the status quo. They accept the blueprint of life that society gives us. They don't challenge their beliefs. They just accept what is. Whereas people, I think like you and I, we go, how else could this be different? And like you said in school, but why do I need to learn French? Why?
It's my biggest bugbear, because I was not challenged. I suppose it is challenging, but if someone tells me something, I want to know why.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it all stems from, I don't know whether it's because I just inherently know sometimes they're talking shit. And I'm like, okay, why? And I'm interested to see why they've come to that recollection or that conclusion. But there's so many times where I'm like, even with business now, I'm like, well, why are we doing it like that? And I read a book, it was Elon Musk's book actually, and he talks about taking things back to their base level assumptions.
Okay.
So when he when he started SpaceX, he had to do all of the rocket engineering science himself, which is just unbelievable when you actually think about that. Like, he set up this business and then was like, oh, you know, I can't afford to pay the top rocket engineer, so I'm going to do it myself. Like, what an intelligence. Like, that is ridiculous. So he can program, he can do like ridiculous level physics, all sorts of stuff. What a guy.
All right, Elon, calm down.
Yeah,
So bad.
he is the real life Tony Stark. But he says then, he's like, when we were talking to NASA originally, because he wanted to do a tie-up, he didn't want to set up another business. And they were like, well, we can't do it any cheaper. And he's like, what?
Why?
But no, that can't be correct. And like, just because everybody buys into this idea that it has to be the way that it is. And I've always just kind of questioned that. I've always questioned, okay, but why do we have to go to university? Why does everybody have to go like this? Or why do we even need to pay a pension? Like, why? I don't, like, every single time I want to understand exactly the reasons why, to come to my own conclusion whether I think it's actually worth my while or not.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. And as you're talking, I'm trying to think, I wonder why is it that we're like that? But I think, and this is something my mental performance coach will always say to me. So, for example, I've had a loop that keeps happening in relationships where, they're the best thing since sliced bread when I first meet them. And then after about a year, I'm like, oh, fuck, here we are again, I'm bored, don't like him. And we've been looking at that cycle, and we've been looking at some of the beliefs that come up around that, and thought processes and emotions. And there are some quite heavy emotional things that I've been trying to understand, asking the question why. And Kieran's like, Sasha, sometimes like you can't solve emotion with logic. Sometimes why?
I'm sorry. I'm like literally the same. I'm like, I'm going to logic and analyze my way out of this.
And he's like, you can't resolve thinking with more thinking. Sometimes you do need to take a step back.
Yeah.
But and this is where, like, I literally will ask the question why about everything. My friends laugh about like the way I do dating, because I ask so many. It's basically like an interview with coaching with a bit of kind of mental background. Like, I was red flag, off we go, bye. But I think it's from somewhere down the line we've learned that asking questions is a good thing. And actually, I remember doing it in school. And it triggering the life out of the teachers. And I remember thinking, you think I'm a problem because of me asking you a question? Just have the confidence to say you don't know, or challenge me back. You know. And I remember doing it actually when I did a Les Mills course, and it was CX Works. I was sat at the front of the class. The people I went with were at the back. I was at the front, legs crossed, like a little excited puppy. But everything they said, I'd be like, okay, but like, and I wasn't trying to be annoying, but like, if I don't understand, if they've gone from A to B, how? Don't just tell me, like, let me understand how you get there. Because if we don't understand how, we can't repeat. And that is something that I think we're very similar on.
It just really winds me up, and I know it shouldn't, but it actually winds me up when someone says like because that's the way that it is.
Nah, bullshit.
And I'm like, but it's like a glitch in their brain. It's like it's like they've not even had the forethought to go, I actually don't know why that is, and they've just not even thought. I don't think it's, without sounding too self-conceived, I think it's just because the awareness isn't there. So when they're like answering these questions, they're just regurgitating what they've been told without really having the process of going, is this true? Do I actually believe this? Does it align with my values?
Yeah.
Because like the amount of conversations that I've had where I'm like, really intrigued as to why they have just regurgitated this information, and they will die on that hill of that information as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I heard something recently on I think his name's Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom podcast.
Isn't he, babe? I love him.
And what was it? Strong opinions loosely held. Whereas those sorts of people are the opposite, where they have weak opinions, but they strongly hold on
to them because with no evidence. Yeah. But it's like what we said about earlier, accepting status quo. You're accepting societal norms. You are just being fed information on a plate and you go, thank you. And there's nothing to back it. Whereas curious kittens like you and I were like, get what you're saying, but tell me how. But imagine, right, if everyone in society was like you and I and challenged it.
It would collapse.
It would completely collapse, and there would be, you couldn't give us rules. There wouldn't be like, you have to do things this way. We'd be like, actually, don't fancy that one. And I was on I can't remember who it was I was speaking to. Oh, I know. So I was at a TMP event up in Manchester. TMP is my mental performance coach, and a fellow coach called Mark Rhodes was reading a book. I don't know if it was Sapiens or something like that, and he was like, "Who actually says this is really bad? Who actually says that killing humans is bad?"
Is that more deep than that seems? Because
yeah, like if you think about how we've evolved, you know, and he is so deep, it's unreal, like so deep. I could listen to that man for days. But it's so true. Like, when did that come around? I know, like, I'm not saying I'm for, you know, murder at all. Don't lock me up. Yeah, the door's locked. But it's so true. Like, where do these beliefs come from, and why that conversation came up? There was a girl sat on the table, and we were talking about what we believe is right and wrong, right? And she was like, she's an ex-doctor, I think, ex-GP, and she said, it really triggers me when people don't do what's right. And that triggered the life out of me, because I was like, who says what's right is right? You know, you're like, hang on a minute. Yeah. And I actually, so I am quite an outspoken person. If I don't believe in something, I'm not going to be this little mouse that just sits at the back. So I said to her, I was like, tell me what you believe is right and wrong. Because there will be people sat on this table who disagree with you. Yeah. And then you're being triggered by the fact that you think that they're doing something right and wrong. But for me, like, you know how there was something you said earlier, and I'm like, I just don't have strong beliefs on things that it's many things are not black and white. There is grey to everything. And that's why, like, you know, when people, you can't do that, it's wrong. Says who, bro? Says who? Society. Okay, but then you move to a different society and it's accepted. So you're telling me that it's right here but wrong there?
Yeah, I think it's all relative. It is all a relative game of what you're programmed to believe.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've massively realized over the last couple of years, is what we're programmed to believe, what you take in, social media. I mean, if we look at over something that really blew my mind over the lockdown period, was how quickly people started to turn on each other on social media. I don't have any strong views about that whole situation, but how did it go from such a, like, you know, everyone looking after each other, to just instantly everyone was sniping and, oh, have you seen so and so, they're doing this and that, like, and it's like, guys, like, there's so much more to life than,
it's status though, isn't it? It's status of being right or wrong. Gary Vee talked about this yesterday on this podcast, and he was saying he doesn't hate dogs, but he doesn't understand how dogs have unconditional love from humans, but why humans can't give unconditional love to each other. I was like, mic drop.
That's good, actually.
I was like, then he was started about the dogs. I was like, whoa. This could be like a turn off podcast moment. Yeah. Like, if you're going to say you hate dogs, then we're not friends. But that moment of, why can we not just accept, like, if you're Labour, I'm Conservative, why can we not just accept that, you know, we all have a different perspective. We all have a different map of the world in our mind. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. They just are. And it is so hard when you, like you said about the strong kind of attachment to your beliefs. If you inherently believe that that is the right way and you don't see any element of grey, prepare for a life where you're going to be met with conflict. And I think that's why, like, I'm very radar, and my radar to drama these days is just so sensitive. I'm like, because drama is always created from something where you have a conflict of opinions. That's all it is. It's an opinion.
And not just a conflict of opinions. It's normally both people want to be right. So no one's listening to each other anyway.
Yeah.
And that's something that I will do. I will listen, even if I think I'm right in a said situation where I think it's more binary. So let's say fitness.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll see it constantly in fitness, where different camps will argue different things. And ultimately, there's a million different ways to get to the same end result, right? With fitness, with dieting, anything. But you'll see it where both camps will be like, no, this is the way to do it. And it's because I think it's because they create this sense of identity, community, camaraderie, that tribal innate nature. And I think that's where it comes from. I think because as humans, we're pack, we're tribal animals.
Yeah.
So you don't, from a psychological perspective, you don't want to be outside the camp. You don't want to be the lone wolf. And if you are the lone wolf, you know, you would have died.
Because, you'd be dead.
Yeah, so I think that's where it comes from. I'd like to think that's where it comes from anyway, because otherwise we're just arguing over pointless shit.
It definitely is where it comes from. And it's also ego. You know, we've developed ego, like, and I am what I have, I am what I believe, I am, you know, there's five ego beliefs, aren't there? And I think that plays part into it. And actually, you've made me just think back to the post I did yesterday on dieting. I believe dieting is wrong. Okay, so this is where no, but dieting in a way that's sustainable, I'm for. But keto, Cambridge, Slimming World, Weight Watchers, I absolutely despise them, because I have worked with women over the years who have been absolutely ruined from it. So that is a belief I have. If you want to do it, I'm not like, if you're like, Sash, I'm doing keto, I'm like, crack on, pal. All right, we know how you feel in a month. I wouldn't dislike you for that. In fact, my crusade, if you like, is against the companies whose the industry is worth so much money. Is it something like 3.5 bill in the UK alone? And it's like, that triggers the life out of me, because they are monetizing on someone's pain. And they're not even resolving the pain. Like, businesses exist to take people's pain away. I get that, right? But it's not even doing that. And that's why my crusade is against the dieting industry.
And I agree. I think it's kind of the point where those companies, they don't give you the secret. Do you know what I mean? So they say that the secret is keto, but then they don't, using that as an example.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I'm just making that very clear. They say that the secret is, let's say, keto, or, you know, Atkins, or any of these diets where you just eat like a meal replacement shake, or you're eating protein and fat only. But then they just miss the most fundamental thing. And now I get it from a business perspective, because they've got to make something, because it's so scalable. They've got to make something that is just like easy to convey, because people don't want to learn as well.
True.
So I get it from that perspective. However, you're still not serving the people that are coming to you, because ultimately you're saying that you're going to solve their problem by doing X. But then the problem is they can't do X for the rest of their life.
So they become reliant.
And then they just dip in and out. And really what they care about is the long-term value of their client.
Yeah.
Because they're like, okay, fine, I can keep this person in there for the next, because every single time they have that positive reinforcement loop of, oh, well, when I was doing that last time, I lost 14 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever. And then now I'm not doing it. I'm back to where I was. So I've got to go back on that again. You know, so whether it's Slimming World, whether it's any of these other companies, I don't want to get sued. There's lots of other companies. But whether it's any of them, they all prey on the same ignorance.
Yeah. And I think it's if I got a quid for every time someone said Slimming World worked for me in the past, I would be absolutely coined.
But I always say to them, it didn't.
No, I say exactly the same, because you're here now.
Yeah.
You know, and James Smith used a really good analogy years ago, and he was like, right, you've got a leak in your bathroom. Okay. The very first thing you need to do is what?
Plug the hole.
Yeah, plug the leak, right? Calorie deficit. How you choose to then mop up the water is actually up to you.
Yeah.
But do you want to then keep having to plug the leak, not completely fix the hole, right? Fixing the hole is finding out a healthy lifestyle that is one that accommodates and helps you to reach your aesthetic goals, as well as being able to live life along the way. You know, so how you want to mop it up, you could have a keto mop, you could have a Slimming World mop, whatever you want to do. But many of those mops will not then, like, you're basically avoiding the plugging the leak properly. So you've got to plug the leak. You've got to think, right, am I just putting a temporary stopper in here, aka fad diet, or am I going to change my lifestyle?
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it.
I think it comes back to that softness, though, I think, because everybody wants something so quick and for nothing. They're not willing to put in time, effort. And something that I always say to people on calls or even in conversation is, you've not got to where you are now overnight.
Yeah, true. In a negative way.
So
sense.
That could be anything. It could be someone comes to me and, you know, they're super skinny, they're under eating, or they're obese, or, you know, they're just unfit. And, you know, so why would you want it as well if it was easy?
Because people do instant grab. And don't forget.
But is it valuable? Does it become valuable, and do people actually want it if it is easy? So if you said to someone, you reckon?
Yes, this is just why we're different.
If you could get a six-pack tomorrow like that.
Say, reframe that in like a massive booty and I'm there.
Yeah. But like, would that then, but you wouldn't want it, I don't think. I think things of value and things of worth have always been difficult for people to attain. And that's why people want them. So, for example, if we go into a more materialistic lens so that we can see things of monetary value, like I couldn't care less, like that's not how my brain works, but things of monetary, materialistic value. So
a car
or a house. Like people want a big house, but why do they want a big house? It's because it's difficult to attain. Not many people have it. And that's why people want it. If everybody had massive houses, it wouldn't be one of those things. Yeah. Or you'd want an even bigger house.
Yeah. That treadmill again.
Or, you know, if it was a car, you'd want a more expensive. If everybody in this neighborhood was driving Mercedes Maybachs, you'd be like, shit, I need a Rolls.
It's so true.
But that's the thing. Like, so I think it's because it's more difficult to attain that those are the things that we value and those are things that we want to aspire to achieve. And if they weren't, everybody had it, if like everybody was walking around with a six-pack, people would be like,
it just is.
Yeah, it's no longer a valuable thing to have.
It is so interesting. And I think, do you know what I think a lot of society would say if they could get a six-pack tomorrow, they'd have it. They don't want to do the work. They're not driven to do the work. They like, think about it. If you've got Linda, who's 56, she's 4 stone overweight. Does she really want to go through the pain of the work to get the six-pack? No. She actually doesn't, I don't think. I think she's in so much pain now. Linda needs to be nurtured. She needs to be celebrated. She needs to be like really small little milestones to break it up. So she's operating from more of a place of pleasure.
Yeah.
Then she will probably enjoy the journey more towards the six-pack.
Do you think this is the difference between males and females? Because my demographic now is majority males. And in the past, when I have coached females, I have taken more of a tactful, softer, like more supportive approach.
Yeah.
Whereas now, recently, with most of all my male clients, I'm a lot more harsh and will set them goals, will keep them more on task, a bit more of a drill master than more of that supportive, like nurturing side.
Depends on the person. Obviously, you have like, I'm quite a masculine female in a way, so I'm very much like that. You know, I need to be pushed, I need to be held accountable, I need to be, you know, targets. I work very well from that side of things, and so generally you attract your tribe. And I do have a lot of masculine females inside the coaching club. So it does depend where that person is at in regards to their personality, but also where they're at in their life. Having coached men in the past, it was such a long time ago, but I don't know whether it's a female male thing. But
masculine, feminine, then we can use that framework because that is probably more applicable.
Yes, yeah. I don't know. I'm not too sure on that one. But I think, do people want to do work? If they did, why aren't they doing it? That's my question back to you. Because if they really wanted to do the work, everyone would be like, oh yeah, I'm doing my fitness. That's what my mum says. Doing my fitness.
Yeah.
Doing my fitness because I know it's going to get me there. People don't want to do the work. That's why like Cambridge are like, well done, you've lost a stone in a week. And they're like, yay, that means I'm 5 stone closer to my goal rather than 6. So it's easy. People don't, so where we're conflicting.
I think it's very interesting because when we're looking at those sorts of moments where people are, I know I have it with a lot of my clients. Some of them are very, very driven. I work with some very successful business people. Those are the easiest clients I ever work with. Because even if they don't necessarily understand,
they just do it.
They'll do it because they're like, right, okay, these are the KPIs. I need to deliver on these. And they treat it like a business.
Yeah.
But it still, for some reason, blows my mind that people can't or don't understand the buy-in of we need to be fit, we need to be healthy, and the implications of not just from a physiological health perspective in terms of long-term, health benefits.
That's obvious.
But if you buy a dog,
He's still here.
If you buy a dog, everybody is aware you have to take that dog for a walk. You have to eat it. You have to eat it. You have to feed it. You have to feed it. You have to feed it a certain amount.
Yeah.
There's a prescribed action.
And it gets sad if you don't.
Yeah.
And we're the same.
Exactly.
That's what I think is the difference of who I work with now inside the coaching club. And I say it's actually a we. We've got like multiple coaches. We don't work with people now who need to know the why. Mm-hmm. Our women know why. They just need a how. Mm-hmm. They don't need a buy-in. They're like, right, Sash, I know why I want to do this. It makes me feel so good. My body looks better. I'm better, productive. I just cannot figure it out with all of the chaos of life, how I can then fit myself into the mix. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. I think there are many people on this planet who need a coach who will help them with the why, mm-hmm. but that's not me, because I'm so far away from that. I'm like, if you cannot read the news and see how even COVID, for example, generally fitter people, healthier people got stung less, mm-hmm. generally, didn't they? Mm-hmm. I swear there was something to do with like obesity and stuff, some stats on it. So, and it's everywhere that like health is more prevalent in regards to pushing it than it's ever been. So yeah, that's what I work with. And like you say, like business women and men who just work on KPIs and basically just need to be told, right, this is logistically how you're going to do it. Let's manage expectations. Let's get it done. And they do. Just making himself comfy.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's an interesting point though, that we're still in a situation where after such a massive shock and everyone was like, we're stuck in our houses.
Oh, for God's sake.
What?
Do not smell that.
Yeah. You're blaming the dog?
It's actually good.
No, it's not me. There's no way I'd have been able to be that casual and just be like, yeah.
It's just had his raw breakfast. This is why.
Yeah. So it interests me. It intrigues me that even with the amount of knowledge that we have now and science-backed evidence of, even sleep.
Yeah.
I did a podcast with Dr. Dean St. Mark, and we were discussing the importance of your circadian rhythm and making sure that everything, you're getting a good quality night's sleep, mm-hmm. and you're getting enough sleep. And although I knew, it was just fascinating to go through it with him, the actual extent of not sleeping enough. Mm. And it taught me a lot, because I'm so driven and I'm like, I want to get things done. That's been one thing that I've been like, sleep is just something that I'm going to have to sacrifice, because I'm like, I've got so much to get done, which is ultimately everybody understands that that's to a fault, because you're not going to be as productive the next day, the next week. Like if you're not sleeping well enough, you're just not going to be efficient. You're not going to be able to concentrate. And it's crazy. Like that in itself, in terms of dementia, you're so much more likely to develop dementia just because you're not sleeping enough.
Scary, isn't it? But back to your point before, it's because I swear it's because of gratification. People don't want to delay. They don't want delayed instant grat. They want to sit on the sofa with their Maltesers, their glass of wine. They don't want to, they want that pleasure and reward now. They don't want to delay it and wait till, and this is why I see with my women, sometimes there's a frustration because their expectation, they're not at the result that they want to be, because they did Cambridge and they lost a stone in a week. So now they've lost 2 pounds. They're like, it's not enough, because they want that gratification there and then. So being able to get people's minds to switch from progress focused to process focused has been a game changer for us.
Yeah.
But look at society, people don't want to, they're in jobs they hate, with partners they don't like, with kids that drive them mad. They've got no energy, their nutrition's through the floor, they're not sleeping well. Why would they then put themselves through the pain of doing a workout?
Welcome to the UK. You sold it incredibly. Just don't come here. Yeah. And I completely agree. And I think process-based goals are incredible. You know, if you look at the psychological response, if you look at the buy-in, if you look at how it shifts the paradigm from really being, I need to lose this much weight, and then, you know, because it's so far away, that it's unattainable for them. There's there was a book that I read. I can't remember what it's called now. Atomic Habits, it's called. I think it's Atomic Habits.
It sounds like it would be if it's.
And where they have the Goldilocks rule. Have you heard of the Goldilocks rule?
I have, but remind me.
So the Goldilocks rule is exactly like the porridge, where you need a goal that's challenging enough. So if it's too challenging, you lose interest.
Yeah.
Because it's too far away. It's unattainable.
What's the point?
Yeah. So it's like being the richest man on the planet or woman.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, obviously from now, that's ridiculous. That's unattainable. That's like not going to interest me. But it also needs to be more challenging than, I want to earn more than £1.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just like, there's no point in me taking any action.
Find one on the street, can't you?
Yeah. So you have to have this kind of, and that's different for everybody, because some people will be able to focus more on the long term and have more challenge than others. So it's really interesting to find that Goldilocks rule, where within each individual, you need to set a goal that is process based, but also fits that Goldilocks rule.
That ticks off it's the milestones, isn't it? You've got to make sure, because otherwise you are either fixating on the end goal, which just seems so far away, or if you don't have a goal, if you're just doing process, sometimes it can become a bit like meh. It's like, what am I even doing this for? Yeah. You know, but this is where, again, I think I'm quite different. Like, I just love doing the do. And like, my goals are almost like it's not like hit this, it's like layers of standards, layers of business, layers of, you know, everything in my life. It's not like I'm striving towards like this one finite thing. I'm just constantly like looking to evolve as a human. That's the way I do things, whether it's my lifts in the gym, whether it's the revenue, whether like whatever it is, I'm just constantly looking at leveling up. And it's really subtle. And I think that's quite different to a lot of people, because it's really unmatched. Like you can't track it. So it's just doing the do, but making sure that you have that kind of self-competitive edge to go, right, is this better than yesterday? Yeah, that's interesting. A broad question: do you have a 5-year plan? No. Okay, the reason that was a loaded question. The reason why I asked that was because, again, I can't remember which podcast it was, and it turns out that most of the more successful business people don't have 5 years plan. Oh, really? That's good to know. Yay! Because they approach it with, I think it was Jocko Willink that said this, where he was saying that obviously 5 years ago he was in the SEALs. You know, then he wrote his book. Now he's got his podcast, and he's just a household name. But he said every single day he goes in to whatever his business is, he kind of knows what he wants to achieve. Obviously, on a day-to-day basis, he knows, but like long term, he has no plan. So he'll just kind of steer the ship. Yeah, he went with a nautical metaphor. He just steers the ship in a certain direction on that day, on that week. So true. And if he makes progress and it's going towards something that he likes, he's like, cool, let's carry on steering that direction. I'm going to double down. If it fucks up and he makes a mistake, he's like, oh, let's re-navigate, bring that back. I don't know if that's how you drive a ship, but seems legit. Yeah, we'll run with it. And drive a ship. Yeah. I don't know. I'll find out when I get a yacht. I'll tell you. Okay, cool. I agree. So I find, like, so for me, for example, rewind a year ago, could I have planned to achieve what I have? To have done what I've done, to be who I am? No. It was beyond my horizon. So with that in mind, if you're on a fast-paced self-development journey, you need markers, you need like a bit of a North Star, a bit of a, you know, a kind of an idea, but like, I don't know. And Phil Graham would kick my ass for saying this, because he's like, you need your numbers, you need everything in place, you know, you need to plan. I do plan, but I don't plan for a goal. Yeah. And I aim for a direction and I move in that way. And like what Jocko does, like I will basically go, does this feel right? Is this where I want to go? Is this now kind of matching the values of my life? Yes. Okay, let's keep going. I think this is one of those really complicated things where it's a lot more nuanced than it sounds, because
for anyone listening, they're like, oh, cool. I don't need any goals or direction, but like, I don't even know how to explain it because I'm very similar. I don't sit there and go, okay, in 10 years' time, this is what I'm going to be, or in 5 years' time, this is what I'm going to be. It's just, I know what I'm enjoying right now with the business. And I know that like podcasts is a big thing for me. I'm going to push that just because I love the socializing element of it. I love the conversations, but I think I get more of the direction and focus from the community that I network with.
Yeah.
So, you know, the inspiration, okay, fine. I can see that some people are doing really well. I'm like, okay, so this actually shows me what is potentially possible.
Definitely.
And maybe I was thinking on a smaller scale than that. And then you start to see some people, you know, that are killing it. Like I know a few guys on YouTube at the moment that are just absolutely killing it. And then you're like, or you start speaking to them about the business side of that and the opportunities that that presents. And I'm like, oh,
how could I do that?
Interesting. And then how it obviously impacts clients and how that impacts everything. And I think that that's where I would almost use the traditional 5-year, 10-year thing. I can look at people and go, how can I not recreate that? But that's very interesting. And I like the look of that. How can I implement something very similar that would align with my business, my values, and deliver a service?
It's just taking wherever anyone is who's listening to this, it's taking one bit of wisdom, one bit of direction. So from those YouTubers, you don't recreate, you just take a snippet of what they're doing that aligns with you and you apply it. What people are generally doing a lot of this day, like these days, is like mental or mindset masturbation. They're not actually doing anything with the stuff they're learning. They're literally just feeling good in the moment. And I think it's really important that we go, okay, whatever it is that you're learning, whatever it is that you're listening to in this, maybe the way that Dan and I do goals isn't, you know, right for everybody. If it was a strength goal though, it would be very different. We're just generally talking about life goals. So for me, I'm striving to hit like 180 on the leg press. I've done it before, but I've obviously let my strength slip a little bit recently, and now I'm going to push it again. So that is a goal. So I think goals are important, but they become less so when you have your self-determination and your self-discipline. I think, whereas if you've got Sandra who's sat at home on her sofa and she's wanting to lose a stone that she's been wanting to lose for 2 years, you have to have the goal, but then you have to break it down into micro chunks, and then you have to, most importantly, think about the actions. So I think it's different for everybody, but some people are really goal driven. They're really kind of like finite mentality, like get me to that goal, get me to that marathon, get me to that thing. And they need those things in place all the time. People like me, it just does my head in. I hate finite goals because I'm like, I put myself under a ton of pressure. I don't enjoy the journey. Whereas for me, just showing up for myself every day is just easy, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I push myself. I say easy, that's the wrong thing to say. It aligns with me as a human more. I just don't like to be put into a box, even if I decide the box.
Don't put me in the box that I made for myself.
Like the photo shoot, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I got to about 2 weeks before and I was like, I don't want to do it. So I didn't.
Why was that?
Because I was burning out when I 2 weeks later ended up in hospital.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Wally.
Yeah.
But it's again looking at the load of life. Like we'd just done one of our biggest events. And then I was like, yeah, let's book a photo shoot for the Wednesday after it. Got 2 weeks out and I was like, I cannot diet and plan for this event and run a coaching business and hire a new team at the same time. So something had to go.
Yeah.
And it was definitely the right decision.
So you bailed out on the shoot?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I did. And it was amazing. Because on the Wednesday, I was absolutely written off. So I'd have been stood there like, do we need to do pictures today?
Yeah. I kind of forgot all my outfits, I'm not going to lie. I just turned up. It'll be all right.
So a chat for half an hour.
It is very interesting because I think that so many people need that goal. Like if you speak to a lot of people that are not in fitness, they haven't had, I think something that is potentially different when it comes to people like you and I is we've had that aha moment where you put the work in and you know that kind of, you get that validation of, okay, now I'm seeing the results of my hard work. So now it's the long-term buy-in is there. We don't need that, okay, now I need a goal of X to do this. I mean, yeah, would you be more motivated if you had a deadline? Maybe.
Yeah, deadlines drive decisions, don't they? But
yeah, but if you're looking at the general populace, they need like a triathlon, they need like holiday, like they need an event. And then if we look at the perpetual loop of the summer dieting, for example,
they want to get fit for the summer. It's so interesting. The book I urge people to read on this is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Have you read it?
I haven't. That's one of the ones I haven't read.
Oh my God. Even the first page is all about like, are you playing to win or are you playing the infinite game? Because they're two very different things. Like you actually don't win at life. Okay, you win and you buy yourself a Ferrari. Great. You die. Where does it go? What is the actual, like the infinite game in my mind is to be on a journey of life where you're doing and feeling the things that you want to do and feel. That's to win. And if you are driven, then winning is about, you know, building a business, creating success, maybe having a Ferrari in the drive, but that is not the win itself. It's part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of people that I've been speaking to being in India at the moment, and they're ridiculously successful. And the one thing that they all have in common is they love the game.
Yeah, you have to.
And it's got nothing to do. Everyone, or like people, and for a long time, me as well, I was like, I don't really understand billionaires. Like, I didn't get it. I understand it now. Like, I really get it. Like, it makes total sense to me because they're like, well, why would you carry on working once you've already achieved a ridiculous amount of wealth? And, you know, people are like, no one needs that much wealth, and they don't. And they don't care about that much wealth either. Like, if you actually speak to any of these people that are ridiculously wealthy and ridiculously successful, they do it for the game. Yeah. They do it because it's like, you know, I want to achieve another thing. I want to do the next level up. I want to do better. I want to spread my message. There's always something more beyond just the money.
What is it? There's 6 human needs: growth, significance, there's like love and connection. The
Maslow's pyramid of needs. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I think it's Tony Robbins. It's like significance, growth, contribution, love and connection, and there's another 1 or 2. And that's what was kind of like highlighted in my mind then when you were saying that. We don't do it for the financial gain. I think you do. It's the same with fat loss, right? You have to lose a certain amount of weight to then realize that the weight isn't the problem, right? Yes, okay, you could be morbidly obese and you need to get down to a healthy BMI. Let's not go into the debate about how shit BMI is. But you then get to a certain amount of weight, you could still be chasing certain numbers, but then you realize that actually the game is the constant growth and evolution as a human that is required for you to be that kind of in that body, you know? And it's the same with business. You have to hit your first 15, 20 grand a month or whatever it is in your business to then realize I feel no different. That doesn't change anything about who I am. My worth on this planet is still the same regardless. But then you do it because it grows you. You get excited about the game. It's about the cause, the commitment, the thing that's beyond you. And that's what Coaching Club is. You know, it's not about anything but, and I probably, the exciting thing is for Coaching Club is I won't see the benefit of it. Because I do now, but in many years to come, the benefit of the Coaching Club is going to be absolutely groundbreaking because we're changing the trajectory for the modern woman. So that is beyond something that's like, I will not be here when it continues. And that's exciting.
Legacy.
Legacy is the infinite game. I'm not playing this game now. So that's why I'm getting so much better about low and slow months or shit feedback and stuff. It's actually just, what is that infinite mission? And it's, I don't believe that women should be at the bottom of the priority pile, not in this day and age. Should we go to the gym?
Leg day.
Leg day.
Let's do it.